The garden venue looked perfect. White chairs were arranged in neat rows, floral arrangements cascading from every available surface, and a string quartet played softly near the ceremony arch. My sister's wedding had turned out exactly as she'd envisioned when she'd come to me 9 months ago, desperate and overwhelmed. "I don't know what to do," Jessica had said that day in my kitchen, her laptop open to a spreadsheet of wedding costs. "Brian's parents can only contribute $10,000 and Mom and Dad have nothing saved. The venue alone is $25,000. I'm going to have to cancel everything and just do a courthouse ceremony." She had been near tears. Jessica had always dreamed of a real wedding, the kind she'd planned in notebooks since we were teenagers. I watched her face crumble as she realized that dream wasn't financially possible. "What if I helped?" I had offered quietly. "You?" She looked surprised. "I mean, that's sweet, but you have the kids and your job. I can't ask you to spend your savings on my wedding." "You didn't ask. I'm offering. Let me look at your numbers." I reviewed her budget, suggested some adjustments, and ultimately agreed to cover the major expenses: venue, catering, photography, flowers. The total came to $62,000. I wrote the checks without hesitation, made the deposits and signed the contracts, all in my name. "Are you sure?" Jessica asked, grateful but uncertain. "This is so much money." "I'm sure. Just promise me one thing. Don't tell Mom and Dad. They'll make it into a whole thing and I'd rather just help you have your day without drama." She agreed, hugging me tightly. "Thank you. I'll pay you back, I promise." "Just be happy," I said. "That's all the payment I need." Now, standing in that beautiful garden 9 months later, watching guests arrive and admire the expensive details, I felt a quiet satisfaction. My sister looked radiant in her dress. The weather had cooperated perfectly. Everything was going according to plan. My 2 children sat beside me. My daughter, Sarah, 9 years old, in a light blue dress she'd picked out herself, and my son, David, 7, in a little suit that made him look absurdly grown up. They'd been excited about the wedding for weeks, asking questions about the ceremony, wondering if they could try the fancy food. My mother arrived with my father, both dressed formally. She surveyed the venue with an approving expression, nodding at the flowers, the chairs, the elegant setup. She didn't acknowledge me beyond a brief nod. Our relationship had been strained for years, ever since I chose a different career path than she'd approved of. She wanted me to follow her into nursing. Instead, I studied software engineering, worked my way up through various tech companies, and eventually started consulting independently. The money was excellent, but my mother never respected it. Technology work wasn't real in her mind, not like medicine, law, or the traditional professions she valued. "You play with computers all day," she'd said dismissively more than once. "It's not a serious career." The fact that my consulting brought in more money than her nursing salary ever had seemed irrelevant to her. She decided I was unsuccessful, and no evidence would convince her otherwise. I drove a practical car, lived in a modest house, and dressed my children in normal department store clothes. In her eyes, these were signs of failure rather than intentional choices. The ceremony was beautiful. Jessica cried during her vows. Brian looked genuinely moved. The string quartet played precisely on cue. Everything I'd paid for came together exactly as planned. Afterward, guests moved to the reception area, another section of the garden transformed into an elegant dining space. Round tables with white linens, centerpieces of roses and peonies, and soft lighting as the sun began to set. The catering staff, professionals I had personally vetted, began serving appetizers. My children were well behaved, sitting at our assigned table and watching everything with wide eyes. David whispered questions about the flowers. Sarah pointed out details in the decorations she found pretty. They were good kids, thoughtful and curious, a little shy in large social gatherings but perfectly polite. My mother stopped by our table, champagne glass in hand. Several other relatives stood nearby, chatting in small groups. She looked around the venue again, then at my children, then at me. "These kids are such a burden at this beautiful wedding," she announced, her voice carrying to the surrounding tables. I told Jessica she should have made it adults only. The words landed like a physical blow. I watched my children's faces change. Sarah's smile disappeared. David's shoulders hunched. They both looked down at their laps, suddenly small and hurt. Around us, conversations faltered. Relatives turned to look. I could see the discomfort on their faces, the second-hand embarrassment at such a cruel public statement. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not anger exactly. More like absolute clarity. I smiled politely at my mother and pulled out my phone. The wedding planner's number was easy to find. I'd been calling her regularly for 9 months. "Hi, Margaret," I said when she answered. "This is going to sound strange, but I need you to cancel everything. Stop all services immediately." "I'm sorry, what?" Margaret's confusion was evident. "Cancel what?" "The wedding. All of it. Catering, music, photography. Everything stops now." There was a pause. "Miss Patterson, I need to clarify. You're the primary contact on all the contracts. You have the authority to do this. But are you certain? The reception has just started." "I'm certain. Please notify all vendors immediately." "Understood. I'll begin the process now." I hung up and looked at my mother. She was staring at me with an expression of confused annoyance. "What was that about?" she demanded. Jessica appeared at our table, her face bright with happiness. "Isn't everything gorgeous? I can't believe how perfect it all turned out." "It is beautiful," I agreed. "But I'm afraid there's been a change of plans." "What kind of change?" Jessica's smile faltered. I pulled up my phone and opened the folder where I'd saved all the receipts, all the payment confirmations. I'd kept meticulous records. Every deposit, every final payment, every contract signed. "This kind," I said, turning the screen so both Jessica and my mother could see. "The venue contract. $65,000 total paid. Signed by me. Dated 9 months ago." Jessica's face went pale. "What are you showing me?" "The receipts for your wedding. All of them. I paid for everything. The venue, the catering, the flowers, the photographer, the quartet, the entire event. Every single expense went on my credit card and was paid in full." My mother grabbed the phone, scrolling through the documents. Her expression shifted from confusion to disbelief to something close to shock. "This can't be right," she said. "You don't have this kind of money." "I do actually. My consulting firm has been quite successful. But that's beside the point now." Margaret, the wedding planner, approached our table with quick, professional steps. "Miss Patterson, I've contacted the vendors. The caterers are stopping food service. The photographer is packing up his equipment. The quartet will finish their current piece and then leave. The bar service is closing now." Jessica stood abruptly. What? What's happening?" "I'm canceling the wedding reception," I said calmly. "Not the marriage itself. That's legal and done. But the party, the celebration, all the services I paid for, those are ending." "You can't do that." Jessica's voice rose. Nearby guests were definitely watching now. "I can actually. My name is on every contract. Margaret can confirm." Margaret nodded uncomfortably. "That's correct. Ms. Patterson is the client of record for all services." My mother's face turned red. "This is ridiculous. You can't ruin your sister's wedding over nothing." "Over nothing?" I looked at my children, still sitting quietly, their earlier joy completely extinguished. "You publicly called my children a burden. You humiliated them in front of everyone here. At a wedding they were excited to attend and at a wedding I paid for entirely." "I didn't mean it like that," my mother backtracked quickly. "How did you mean it, then? Explain to me the kind interpretation of telling everyone my children are burdens at this beautiful wedding." She couldn't. Around us, relatives were whispering, putting pieces together. The bartender was covering bottles. Catering staff were quietly removing serving trays. "Wait," my father interjected, finally speaking. "You paid for all of this? The whole wedding?" "Yes. Jessica came to me 9 months ago because you and Mom had no savings to help her, and Brian's family could only contribute $10,000. She was going to cancel her dream wedding, so I covered the rest." Jessica was crying now, but not the happy tears from the ceremony. "You told me not to tell them." "I did. Because I knew it would become about me and Mom instead of about you. I wanted you to have your day without family drama. But apparently that wasn't possible." The photographer approached, his camera bag already packed. "Miss Patterson, I'm heading out. Per your instructions." "Thank you," I said. A guest called out, confused. "Is the wedding over? Are we supposed to leave?" I stood up, addressing the gathering crowd. "I apologize for the disruption. Due to family circumstances, the reception is ending early. Thank you all for coming to witness the ceremony. A murmur of confused conversation spread through the garden. Guests began gathering their things, unsure what was happening but clearly understanding something had gone very wrong. My mother grabbed my arm. You're destroying your sister's wedding out of spite. No, I said quietly, removing her hand. I'm protecting my children from a grandmother who sees them as burdens. Jessica still got her ceremony, her legal marriage, her beautiful venue for the pictures. What she's not getting is a celebration hosted by someone whose children were just publicly humiliated. Jessica sank into a chair. I didn't know you paid for everything. Mom said she and Dad had taken care of it. They lied to you, I said simply. Did you never wonder who was making all those vendor payments? I thought they were handling it. They said not to worry about the finances. My father looked stricken. We were going to tell her eventually. When? I asked. After the wedding? After you'd taken credit for something I did. He didn't answer. My mother's shock was wearing off, replaced by anger. You make good money playing with computers and suddenly you think you're better than everyone? You think you can control us with your money? I don't think I'm better than anyone. But I do think my children deserve respect. And I think actions have consequences. You wanted to publicly humiliate them at an event I funded. Now you're experiencing the consequences of that choice. Margaret touched my arm gently. All vendors have been notified and are departing. I'll send you a final accounting of any cancellation fees by tomorrow. Thank you, Margaret. You've been wonderful to work with. She left and I turned to my children. Sarah, David, let's go home. They stood immediately, relief visible on their faces. They'd been sitting through the entire confrontation with impressive composure, but I could see the stress in their posture. As we walked toward the parking lot, I heard Jessica crying harder, my mother's voice raised in anger, my father trying to calm everyone down. Guests were streaming out, clearly uncomfortable and confused. My phone buzzed. A text from my uncle. What just happened? Everyone's leaving. I didn't respond. In the car, Sarah spoke first. Are you okay, Mom? I'm fine, I said, turning to look at both of them. Are you two okay? David nodded slowly. Grandma was mean. Yes, she was. And that's not acceptable. I don't want you to ever think you're burdens. You're the best part of my life. Sarah leaned forward from the back seat. Did you really pay for Aunt Jessica's whole wedding? I did. That's a lot of money. It is. And I was happy to do it for your aunt, but not at the cost of you two being disrespected. We drove home in relative quiet. My phone continued buzzing with messages. Jessica, my father, various relatives. I ignored them all. At home, I made grilled cheese sandwiches and we watched a movie together, my children curled up on either side of me on the couch. By the time they went to bed, they seemed mostly recovered from the earlier hurt. I stayed up, finally reading through the messages. Jessica's were apologetic, explaining she genuinely hadn't known, that she was grateful but devastated. My father's were confused, asking if we could talk. My mother's were defensive and angry. I responded only to Jessica. I'm sorry your day ended badly. But I'm not sorry for protecting my kids. When you're ready to talk, I'm here. The next morning, Margaret sent the final accounting. Most services had already been delivered or prepared, so the actual financial loss from the cancellation was minimal. The biggest impact was social. The sudden ending, the confused guests, the family drama made public. My phone rang. My father. I need you to understand something, he said without preamble. Your mother was wrong to say what she said. But destroying Jessica's wedding wasn't the answer. Jessica's wedding happened. She's married. She had her ceremony, her venue, her flowers, her photos from before the reception. What she didn't get was a party at my expense after my children were insulted. It was one comment. One public comment, Dad. At an event I paid for entirely. An event you and Mom took credit for while contributing nothing. He was quiet for a moment. We thought it would be easier if Jessica didn't know you'd paid. She was already stressed. Easier for whom? You told her you'd handled it. You let her think you were providing this wedding. That's not protecting her from stress. That's taking credit for my generosity. Maybe that's true, he admitted. Your mother and I need to think about a lot of things. About how we've treated you in your work. About what we said to your kids. Yes, you do. Can we talk in person? All of us. Eventually. But not right now. Right now, I need some distance. After hanging up, I sat with my coffee, looking out at my backyard where my children would soon be playing. The practical car in the driveway. The modest house that was exactly the right size. The life I had built deliberately on my own terms. My phone showed a new message. Jessica, can we meet for coffee? Just us. I typed back, yes. Let me know when. The wedding had ended badly. Relationships were strained. But my children were safe and they knew without question that I would always protect them. Everything else could be figured out later.